It's Night of the Podcast.
Welcome, horror fiends, to Night of the Podcast, a one-man horror show where I, Brian, talk to you about all things spooky, creepy, horror, and Halloween-related. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know what he's going to talk about this episode. He's going to do part 2 of Halloween Horror Nights. That's why I'm here. And it's not actually what I'm going to be talking about today. I've been watching a slew of movies, a plethora of horror movies, to say the least. Actually, it has been that many this month. I typically only watch horror movies, and that's what I'm doing more of, considering it's the month of October. So with that being said, I've watched quite a few movies. I've been making a list, compiling it, checking it twice. I'm going to find out, who's naughty and nice. Not really, but what movies are good and what movies are bad. So I have my list right here on my phone, and I'll go ahead and read to you what I have watched so far. And I'm going to give you just kind of brief reviews of them because there's so many movies that I've watched, and I don't want to pick anyone in particular. I'm just going to give you a yes and no, more or less, on whether or not you should watch these movies if you have streaming services such as Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime with Shudder, because that's what I have. Oh yeah, Hulu with Showtime. I can't forget that one. I've seen some good ones on there like Lumberjack Man, so watch the review for that one if you want to find out if you should watch that or not. So far this month, we're 8 days into the month, and I have watched 8 movies. Now, I haven't watched all those movies in consecutive days. Didn't watch one every single day. Some days I watch 2 movies. Some days maybe I watch 3. I'm not going to say what I do on my time off. It's watch movies. But that's what I've done. So I'm going to start off with the first one that I watched. And the first movie that I watched is Road Games. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of Road Games or seen it before, but it is basically about a trucker that is after someone that he witnesses them burying something in the desert, and he starts tracking them more or less. And Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. I don't know the main guy's name. I didn't do a lot of research on these. I apologize for that. But Road Games, yeah, it's made in the 80s. It's an older flick, and I say go ahead, watch it. It wasn't that bad. It had some pretty funny stuff in it. The kills were whatever. Weren't really a lot of them, but they were the ones that was there. Not very graphic by any means or anything of that nature, but it was a decent flick, and I think it's worth checking out if you have the time. The second one that I watched was Patchwork. Now, Patchwork is currently on Netflix. If you have Netflix, Road Games, sorry, I keep looking down at my phone. Road Games is on Amazon Prime. So, yeah, Road Games on Amazon Prime. Check it out if you can. Patchwork on Netflix. And I don't really think it was worth watching. A lot of people, I think, like this one. It's about these 3 girls that wake up and they are sewn together, and somehow they are one person and they're brought back to life, and then they they're trying to figure things out and what happened to them. And that's basically the movie. They kind of go crazy sometimes and kill some people. Now, this one had more creative kills than Road Games, and I think that it's not really worth the watch. I don't know. I didn't really like it that much. Like I said, a lot of people really enjoyed this flick. I didn't care for it, so I'm going to say pass on Patchwork. Movie number 3, I watched Late Night Double Feature, which I believe is on Hulu, Showtime. This is another pass movie. I gotta say, it's a late night double feature. It's hosted by a mad doctor called Dr. Nasty and his nurse assistant called Nurse Nasty, which reminds me of Dr. Rotz and Nurse Candy, just a tad. But if you don't know who they are, check out Dr. Rotz's Laboratory on YouTube. I'll post the link somewhere. But anyways, yeah. So reminded me of that, and they host the double feature of 2 movies. One being a movie about cannibals, and then the next. Oh geez, I don't even remember. It was forgettable, and I might have fallen asleep. So don't watch that one. It was definitely not worth it. It's a hard pass for a late night double feature, like The Reference, but in the movie title, but pass on that movie. After that, I watched Jeepers Creepers. It's a classic. I love Jeepers Creepers. I think it's a really good movie. I think I enjoy it more and more every time I watch it. And this time I enjoyed it even more. If you don't know anything about Jeepers Creepers, it's about a monster that comes out every 23 years in spring, and he gets to feed for 23 days. Is it that what it is? I don't know. There's number 23 is in there. But anywho, I watched that one. I like it. There's a lot of controversy around the Jeepers Creepers movies because they're directed by Victor Salva, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on with him. I try to kind of separate the art from the artist, so to say. When I watch these films, it is a little bit difficult to do at times if you know the story. If you don't know anything about him, I definitely recommend that you read up on it. I'm not going to go into it, but yeah. So do that if you'd like. The movie itself, though, Jeepers Creepers, I do enjoy that one. So then I watched In the Dark. Now, In the Dark was kind of an anthology movie. This one was fun. This one is on Amazon Prime. It's about some girls that are in a hotel room and they find VHS tapes in their hotel and they decide to watch them. And while watching them, each one is its own little thing. There's a one about a dummy, and there's a one about death. There is a one about, oh, Jiminy Crickets. What is it about? Well, I can't really remember the other one. So we're going to go ahead and say if you do have Amazon Prime, go ahead and watch it. It's a fun little ditty. It's hard for me to remember all this stuff. I should write it down. That's probably a better idea. But that's all I'm going to tell you that I've watched so far. I've watched a couple others. Maybe I'll do a midweek podcast and I'll let you know the others that I watched. But that's all I have for this episode. So thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and watching me on YouTube if you are watching. And thank you for listening on iTunes and SoundCloud. You can always email me at nightofthepodcast@gmail.com, or you can follow me, Brian, personally on Instagram at xxhalloweenxx. Be sure to like the Facebook page at Night of the Podcast, and please leave me a review on iTunes. I would really appreciate the feedback. All right, thanks everyone, and until next time, good night, good fright, be careful what lurks when you turn out the lights.